MGTOW, as you would have heard of my video,
Yeah.
with like, first of all, let's define, because now, since we're now talking about it, people will not know what we're talking about.
Okay.
So how do you define MGTOW? What's your name, first of all?
Matthew.
Good to meet you, Matthew.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, okay. So how do you define it?
Just men's rights activist.
All right. So what differentiates a MGTOW then from a general red pillar?
I guess someone who's kind of, I guess it's kind of a guy that doesn't let kind of toxic masculinity get in his way of doing what he wants to do.
Who are the main representatives of MGTOW?
I don't think we have one.
That guy that was called Sandman or something like that.
Sandman.
Yeah?
I wouldn't say I'm on his side on everything.
But
I guess
I haven't seen that many like representatives of the MGTOW movement.
Yeah.
Like he's probably one of the most brazen ones or something, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, the thing is, a lot of what are you feeling? Tell me what you're feeling. What is the reason? What made you actually become MGTOW, or what seduced you to this ideology or this way of thinking?
I guess it's just kind of like, I felt like there was an inequality, but unlike how kind of society tells us, I think society tells us a lot that like women have less rights than men, but it's kind of like, to me personally, I never really felt like that. I always felt like kind of men had less rights than women did.
Can I ask you a question? You don't have to answer it if you don't want to, yeah?
That's okay.
Was there any event that took place in your life, a personal event, that after that event you felt like this made more sense than you would have otherwise maybe felt?
What do you mean?
Was there some relationship that you were in, maybe, that ended in a very negative manner?
No, I've never been in a divorce or anything like that.
Right. Not divorce, but like, let's say, for example, any breakup. Which you felt like you are hard done by, or that you felt embittered because of?
No, it wasn't so much relationships. It was just kind of like, I mean, I did get beaten up when I was 15.
By whom?
Like another guy.
Okay.
So it's like, it wasn't so much relationships.
Yep.
But just kind of expectations from society. Whereas like, men are taught to kind of be like big, strong, rough.
I'm with you. Okay, so my question to you is, MGTOW, some of their prescriptions involve complete isolation, which is quite similar to radical feminists, because radical feminists say, they a lot of them prescribe lesbianism as a way forward. Now, the issue with that is that it destroys any sense of complementarity.
Yeah.
You see, what has made you feel like that's the right argument? Like, first of all, do you accept that? Do you feel like being alone and not relying on women is the way to go, or do you feel like, what is it exactly?
At the moment, most of you are ejaculating.
Do you want to try and elaborate on that further?
Right. Because once again, I was looking at forums and stuff, because they don't have actual written works, except for what I've read from Rollo Tomasi, the Rational Male and stuff. But he's not MGTOW. But he does elaborate their positions and stuff. But what I'm saying is that when I was listening to Sandman and others, it seemed to me like the highest level of MGTOW is a man who isolates himself from women. He does not connect with them. He lives for example, one of the prescriptions was like, have a woman that you pay for her services or something like that, so you don't have to be harmed by, for example, this is a big thing, it's a big theme, it's a massive theme, and I think rightfully so. Like, for example, in the Western world, we have like men being stripped away from the rights to see their children in particular situations. In order to avoid that scenario, you should completely separate yourself from women. To what extent do you agree with such proposition? To the extent, in fact, to be fair to him, he says that except for if you want sexual services or something like that, maybe you can get an escort or go to Thailand or something like that. I don't know exactly what his prescription was, but he was trying to, make a man less reliant on a woman's actions as much as possible. That's my understanding of MGTOW.
Okay.
What do you think of it? Is my understanding correct? To what extent, if it is, to what extent do you agree with that?
I think it's kind of, because MGTOW's kind of a movement that a lot of other guys have mixed opinions on, and I think it's gone as far to the point where it's like guys just have their own opinion of what MGTOW is, while cutting off what other guys think MGTOW is.
Let me ask you a question. What are your main concerns? So you mentioned one of them, that you feel like there's been this narrative.
Yeah.
In the red pill community, they call it the gynocentric order. Yeah. So there's this narrative of like women have not been given their rights or whatever, and you feel like that narrative is false, and that in fact your own grievances have been suppressed. Is this correct characterization?
Yeah.
All right. So what kind of grievances do you have then?
Well, just kind of like men are much more likely to face violent and hate crimes. Men are much more likely to be homeless. Men have a shorter life expectancy. I guess it's men also have less. I could be wrong here, but men have less sex than women do. I mean, that's controversial, but
No, I mean there was a less sex is a bit of an interesting thing. There was a study done by Superdrug.
yeah,
Superdrug actually put forward a study, right, to see how many sexual partners a man or woman have.
yeah,
Both of them are around 9 sexual partners, I think by the age of 21 or something like that. You'd be surprised. In terms of, because that's variety of partnership.
Yeah.
But then the question is of, maybe a woman will be in more a long-term relationship, so she's having more sex. That's a question I haven't looked into, so I'm going to go and look into it.
okay,
Yeah, but the point is that I understand your grievances.
yeah,
Okay. As a Muslim, we believe in a complementarian system.
Yeah.
Okay. So we believe in a system of like checks and balances. We don't believe that men and women are equal,
Yeah.
or that equality of value means identicality of roles.
okay,
Okay. We believe that we're equal on a value perspective. Like as intrinsic human beings, I have the same value as a woman, or if a woman has the same value as me. There's not ceteris paribus, right? There's no reason for that not to be the case. However, there are certain distinctive features that men have that women don't have, and vice versa. And as such, they're tailored laws. Like, for example, one of the most controversial ones, I'll give you 2 or 3 most controversial ones, you might have heard of already, in the Islamic paradigm, is that a man is a qawwam, which is that he has a managerial hierarchy in a house.
yeah,
Now, a woman, on the other hand, as a mother, is more influential as a mother.
yeah,
It's more influential as a mother. So in other words, there's a check and balance going on here, okay? There's checks and balances going on. And so one could argue that, well, in order to avoid this hierarchy, I won't get married.
yeah,
Or that this hierarchy, if it's checked and balanced, if children are into the equation, then I ought not to get into a marriage because there's a hierarchy there. So for example, a woman without a child will not have the checks and balances. But the point is, for us, the idea is not to try and create equality.
yeah,
Equality of outcomes, even equality of outcomes, we don't say is a favorable, it's not a favorable thing. It's not a good life. It could be that equality of outcomes can produce negative net results. Yeah. So the point is, for us, is that we believe in checks and balances. There are certain things that men and women have. Men have it, women don't have it, and vice versa, which creates a harmony. It calibrates the system, okay? So yes, a man will have a final say in major decision making in the Islamic religion. A man can marry 4 women at the same time, whereas a woman can only marry 1.
The thing is, though, I don't think we've ever lived in a society where men and women have actually been equal before, but we've lived through like centuries of men and women not being equal. So it's kind of like we haven't actually fully officially tried it out of what life would be like if men and women were.
Yeah, and the point would be like you can't try it out. I mean, if you did, I think you'd have an inefficiency, because here's, like, for example, take the Ukraine example, right? Now women are being evacuated or whatever. Women and children are being evacuated, but men have to fight.
Right.
All right. So there is the feminist call for equality is non-applicable to that context, because they realize the inefficiency of putting women on the front line. In this country, for example, the UK, women were not even allowed on the front line. I think until fairly recently, because it's inefficient to have weaker people on the front line.
Yeah.
And so my argument is this: is that I feel like the MGTOW prescriptions are a step too far. And I'll be honest with you, bro. I think they force or they encourage men to be cowardly. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because in reality, there are these problems in life. That there's always going to be some level of tension between men and women. But I'm talking about the prescription, which you haven't agreed with anyway, which is the idea that we should be separating ourselves, which is similar to the radical feminist prescription. Separating ourselves from the bulk of the other sex. I don't think that's the answer. I think the answer is that we should re-establish a relationship with women, but with new terms. The terms are these. that there are going to be some rights I have as a man that you as a woman are not going to have. And vice versa. There are going to be some things I get that you're not going to get. And that is based on the fact that we are physiologically and biologically and anatomically different. That's based on the fact that that will bring forth the most efficient outcomes. So, for example, the Islamic prescription of a woman to breastfeed for 2 years. A man can't do that physically. Yeah. Even to the point where Ngozi, who wrote a book called The Feminist Manifesto, she was saying everything should be exactly the same, equal, whatever, except for breastfeeding, because she realizes a biological impossibility here. But we're saying, why does it stop there? If you realize that having breast milk is something which is advantageous, why not also realize that a mother being in the child's life for X amount of years is also advantageous to the child? Why not also realize that according to all the studies that we have, for example, Farron's book, The Myth of Male Power, I'm not sure if you've read it.
No, I haven't.
This is a very important book, you should read it, yeah? Okay. And The Boy Crisis. Farron's books are important, yeah? In the men's right world, or the backlash literature world, yeah? Where he talks about the advantage of a nuclear family, okay? So if you, and when I was talking to particularly, it was a person called Nicholas Wolfinger, and he does demographic studies on marriages and stuff like that, yeah? And he unequivocally told me this, and it's online, that in fact, a nuclear family, which is religious in particular, where there's frequent religious practice, is most efficient in terms of outcomes, in terms of like a child's more likely to have a higher education, more likely to be, less likely to be involved in delinquentism and criminality and so on. Right. So we know what the structure is which caused the best outcome. And if men and women, instead of this kind of like, I would say, partisan, kind of discussion, we focus on children. Okay, what is in the best outcome or the best thing of the children, the next generation? I think if we both come to that conclusion and we re-establish the terms of engagement based on these principles which are most efficient, then I feel like there's going to be a positive outcome here. How does that sound to you? Is that reasonable?
I'm not quite sure, to be honest.
Right, think about it. But what I would say is, look, let me tell you something, okay? I personally believe in the following. Yeah. I personally believe that human beings are fundamentally, psychologically egoistic. Yeah. That not ethically, but psychologically, fundamentally, we care about ourselves. There's a narcissism in all of us. Yeah. Fundamentally, if I got my leg cut off, you would care less about that than if your own leg were cut off, or even if your own mum's leg were cut, whatever. Yeah, I think so. We are fundamentally wired that way. There is a deep, entrenched psychological egoism, yeah?
That's because that's not us. It's just like we haven't tasted the pain.
Yeah, exactly. So fundamentally, things go down to two things. What's in my best interest? What's going to remove my pain? What's going to increase my pleasure? A lot of it is like that, yeah? Now, that's a psychological condition. However, now, there's only one way to actually transcend this. Because in reality, to get the best outcomes, we must transcend that. Because egoism, if it's ethical egoism, it produces a conflict of interest. And a conflict of interest is always against your own interest, which is ironic. So being egoistic, being also about my rights, yeah, if it's a man doing it, whether it's gender egoism from a man's side to a woman or females to females or vice versa, is always going to create negative results, okay? Because there's going to be conflicts of interest that cannot be resolved, which are going to end up being against that person themselves, yeah? So the way to do this is to have a transcendental idea, something which goes above and beyond the call of gender egoism. And we say that for as Muslims, we say that idea is God, basically. That we have to ask a more fundamental question: what is the purpose of life? And the purpose of life for us is that we worship God, that we submit to God, and so on. Do you see? Because when you have a meaning in life, as Nietzsche said, if you have a why, almost any how is possible. Like, what really will motivate a woman or a man? Well, let me ask you two questions. What is most likely to motivate a man to extract from his own resources so that he can upkeep his family, his children, rear his kids and whatever, even though that's against his economic interest? Likewise, what is most likely to make a woman obedient to a husband? Obedient to him, it's a very strong word in this managerial hierarchy. Accepting of these things, that even if it causes some level of insecurity or discomfort. I would say it has to be something which goes above and beyond the call of, okay, I'm doing this for myself, it's in my best interest. It has to be, yes, it is in your best interest, but there's a transcendental idea, which is what? Which is a godly one. This is a metaphysic, you know, and it gives the whole gender discussion meaning. Which is why, I'll be honest with you, despite the fact that we also suffer from gender egoists from both sides in the Muslim world, Muslim feminists, or those who are influenced by them, and men that are too gender egoistic on their side as well. I feel like of all the religions in the world, maybe with the exception of Judaism as well, Islam and Orthodox Judaism has been able to keep the idea and the sacredity of the nuclear family intact. And there's a reason for that. And even Tomasi actually agrees with that. He mentions that in his book, to be fair to him, yeah? And so what I'm saying is, the way forward, what I'm gonna say is you're less likely to convince a man to extract his resources and sacrifice his life, or a woman to obey a man, if there isn't an overarching idea, which is that you're doing it for the sake of God, as part of your purpose of life and so on. That has consistently been shown to be the case. So I think there's a major disadvantage in trying to implement the most efficient types of family restructuring on a secular paradigm. I think that the religious paradigm is infinitely more powerful in being able to do so. Do you see what I'm saying? Yes.
I mean, I think one thing I have realised is that I guess it kind of speaks out to kind of the rest of the world, where it's kind of like, I think the most secularized people, I think, are often the ones that have kind of faced religion at the most extreme level, and that's why, to the point that it kind of harms them mentally, so that's why they end up going secular.
I understand, but look, all the evidence about religion and human contentment is against the thesis that you just mentioned. For example, Pew Research have done a study on human happiness.
Yeah.
And they said that the people that are most religious are actually the most happy.
Right, yeah.
There is a research on that. Yes, and Pew Research is seen as like the gold standard.
What about like Sweden?
2019.
What about in Sweden, where they say like religion is like dropping quite rapidly, but general society is like really quite happy?
No, general society is not happy in Sweden. I feel like Sweden, first of all, has the highest level of suicide in the world, especially male suicide, which we were talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, quite. Be honest. I'm saying, like, put the sociological studies to the side. Go to Sweden. I'm saying go to Sweden, and then go to any place you like in Africa. Any place you like. Any place you like in the whole of the Middle East. Just look at the people's faces.
I feel like there's like.
No, I'm being serious. Sorry, I know this sounds like a superficial remark. If you go to, I've been to Sweden many times. I've been to Norway many times, yeah? When you go to Scandinavia, I go to Scandinavia, I'm saying that, yes, the studies have shown, like for example, Forbes magazine have said this, the World Health Organization have said this, the highest level of depression are in countries like Sweden, yeah? And the United States of America. So the studies are there, but I'm just saying, from a human, if you've traveled, you go to Sweden, you go to Norway, look at the people, just look at the people. Look how they interact with each other, look at how they look in the streets, look at their disposition and their temperament. Then go to, I'm from Alexandria in Egypt, yeah? Originally, that's where I'm from, yeah? Go to Alexandria. People are a bit complaining about the economic situation, yeah? But they're not like the people in Sweden. I promise you that. And what do you think?
I thought they were brilliant. I looked around.
They're brilliant. I'm not saying they're not brilliant, but they're not happy. I'm saying that happiness is. People confuse the Human Development Index, which is it's an economic thing, yeah, with human happiness. That's the first thing. The second thing is
a metric that measures quality of life within society framework like that.
That is that. It's called the Human Development Index.
Oh, okay. Well, I must have been looking at another one, because there's a few different.
The Human Development Index. It puts together life expectancy, GDP per capita, and educational levels, and a few other things.
I feel like there are like a lot of countries have their own version of what freedom is. So like, I guess Sweden views it as like very liberal, but then there's another type of freedom in America, where it's kind of like their freedom where like people are really crazy. But then
I get what you mean.
And then there's also Japan,
but America's comparatively to Sweden, a very religious country, especially in the Bible Belt. There's a lot of religion going on there. What I'm saying is that the issue is this. First and foremost, I feel like there's a hidden presupposition. In my view, the purpose of life is not actually to be happy. And in fact, it's not actually to be happy. And in fact, I think physiologically or psychologically, being happy all the time is not actually a good state to be in. Because if you think about it, from a biological perspective, yeah, imagine when you're happy, your dopamine goes up, right? Or serotonin or neurotransmitters go up. But the more euphoric you are, the more you crash, in fact. So being at a physiological, psychological state of euphoria or happiness or ecstasy all the time is not actually. So the Quran actually tells us from our perspective, the best state to be in as a stable is not happiness, but is in fact tranquility. That's why the Quran states, for example, right? الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَتَطْمَئِنُّ قُلُوبُهُم بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. I will translate. أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ. So basically it says that the ones who believe and their hearts find tranquility in the remembrance of God, that surely with the remembrance of God do hearts find tranquility. So in other words, the best static state to have from an Islamic perspective or from a human perspective, or at least what the prescription of the Quran is one of tranquility. If you have peaks of, for example, ecstasy or euphoria, that's okay. But if it's too often, it will crash you. You will not be in a positive mind frame, you see? Right. So for us, we don't believe that happiness is where you should be going anyway. Tranquility is where you should be.
Would you say there's a difference between being happy and doing something right, is what you're trying to say?
What I'm saying is that being happy is not always a good thing to be.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's okay not to be happy, so long as you're tranquil. The best life, if you were to tell me, look, for the next 2 months, what state do you want to be in? I will say I want to be in a tranquil state. If I say I want to be in a euphoric state, then I know for a fact, and any drug user will know this, including yourself. Yeah? I'm not gonna.
Okay.
I know him from before. Any drug user will know this, that when you take drugs, if you take opioids, which I did take, but as a prescription drug, when I had an injury, I had to take heavy loads of opioids, just like tramadol and morphines and stuff like that. And it gives you a bit of a kick. Yeah. But then what you realize is that it gives you a major crash as well. As Van der Kolk, he wrote a book called The Body Keeps Score. Just know that if you're feeling ecstatic at any moment, that there's going to come a time where that is going to be repaid in either depression or sadness or low mood. So for me, the best, being ecstatic once in a while, twice, 3 times is okay. But being ecstatic all the time ain't what I want to be anyway. I don't want to be happy all the time. I want to be tranquil all the time. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So what I'm saying is, the question now is, if the physiological or psychological state of human being, which is optimal, is a tranquil one, yeah, how does one attain that? So the Quranic message is saying that the way to attain that is through remembrance of God. So let me explain how. Let me explain how. Let me explain. The Quran states the following. Yeah, the Quran honestly says, "Inna al-insana khuliqa halu'a." That certainly the human being is being created in a state of anxiety. That the human being is fundamentally anxious. إِذَا مَسَّهُ الشَّرُّ جَزُوعًا. If evil befalls him, then he's in a panicked state. وَإِذَا مَسَّهُ الْخَيْرُ مَنُوعًا. And if good comes to him, then he's very preventative. So the original physiological or psychological state of the human being is one of anxiety, of panic, and of stinginess. And then it says إِلَّا الْمُصَلِّينَ, except for those who are الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَلَى صَلَاتِهِمْ دَائِمُونَ, the ones who are consistent upon their prayers. And then it gives like 8 different characteristics. What are these characteristics? All of these characteristics relate to a metaphysical meaning, something bigger than the human beings themselves. As I said, as Nietzsche said, if you have a why, almost any how is possible. Yeah? If you have a meaning of life and a purpose of life, then you can get through pain. Like for example, you look like you're going to the gym or do some stuff, yeah? You don't look like that. No, I'm joking. okay, I'm only kidding. But when you go to the gym, if like, let me put it into a human example, yeah? If someone goes to the gym and does like bench press and all these kind of things, right? Really and truly, effectively, they're causing micro tears in their muscle, right? But in so doing, in their mind, they're doing it for a purpose which is bigger than that, which is what? So that they can grow their muscles and whatever, right? Are you with me? All right, so something which would effectively be painful in one sense has been transformed to something which is in any event enjoyable maybe, which is worthwhile or something like that. Why? It's been transformed like that because of perception. So perception and teleos, or purpose or meaning, transforms a fundamentally painful thing into something which is fundamentally bearable or fundamentally even enjoyable. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do see.
Yeah, and that's why there was a guy that wrote, his name was Viktor Frankl, who wrote a book called The Meaning of Life, or Meanings of Life. He was a Holocaust victim, yeah, but he was a survivor, and he invented something called Search for the Meaning of Life. He invented something called logotherapy, because he basically said this: that what differentiated the victims of the Holocaust that could bear the pain and punishment from those who couldn't is the fact that they were praying and that they were creating meaning out of it and narrative out of it and whatever. So logotherapy is actually, he differentiates it because he says, and he quotes Nietzsche as well, this quote that I said, he differentiates it by saying that if you create meaning and purpose, yeah, in someone's life, then it's one of the most therapeutically effective methods. Going back to religion, and he specifically even says religion is one of the best ways of doing that. So going back to what I'm saying now, yeah? Yeah. So there is psychological backing, yeah, for what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if you create meaning in situations which would otherwise be negative, okay, or would induce a pessimistic reaction for a human being, then that is it's a surefire way of alleviating that pain or even reconceptualizing or reformulating in one's mind. That's why there's a hadith of the Prophet, Prophet Mohammad. He said something. He says, "Ajaban li amr al-mu'min." He said, "Wondrous is the affair of the believer. Inna amrahu kullahu lahu khayrun." That all of his affair is good. وَلَيْسَ ذَاكَ لِأَحَدٍ إِلَّا لِلْمُؤْمِنِ. And this ain't the case for anyone except for a believer. إِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ سَرَّاء شَكَرْ. If good things happen to him, he's thankful. وَإِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ ضَرَّاء صَبَرَ وَشَكَرَ. And if bad things happen to him, he's patient and thankful. Meaning what? Meaning that you can never really attain this high level of meaning unless you have a metaphysic, a religious metaphysic, which will allow you to think of the bigger picture. There's nothing material here. Like, I'll be honest with you, when people die for their country, or die for the Queen, or die for whomever, yeah? I'll be honest, I feel like that is, for me, it's not a compelling enough reason to fight or die. Because why should I die for another human being, whomever they are? Why should I die for another human being, whomever they are? Yeah? Unless it's maybe you can argue a child that I'm trying to protect and whatever. But really and truly, why should I? Yeah? Why should I? But no, honestly, am I right? Would you die for your country? Would you die?
Unless if you love that person.
No, yeah, but I'm just saying that dying for one's country is a nonsensical proposition for me. What? The flag is not going to come to me in my grave and tell me, well done, you have done your job. The Union Jack is not going to accompany me when I'm in the, it's not.
That's the thing, you injected the word religious meaning story, you put but like I've got a story about veganism, and I've got like a moral idea that says don't cause suffering when you don't need to, and so I undergo the suffering of being vegan and whatever difficulty comes up with that, but I do it for the larger cause of saving animals.
Yeah, and that's going to help you more than if you didn't have that cause. Yeah, I'm not denying that, but I'm saying that there's a higher level one. The religious one is like, there's an eschaton, there's an afterlife, there's a bigger picture. You cannot compete with that.
I think one of my stories would be there is something as like to be moral, to be good. There are good actions and bad actions. I want to do good actions and consider myself moral.
Fine.
So that transcends. That is my driving thing.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to push back against the idea that you need to inject only religion can give you these.
I didn't say only. No. Certainly, that's not my point.
Yeah.
I'm saying any metaphysic which is transcendental has the potential to do that.
Yeah.
But I feel like religion is particularly effective. Why? Because religion gives you a promise of an eschaton, of an afterlife.
Yeah, but
but seriously, like, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. If you actually, it's conditional. If you actually believed, like with the way that you believe that I'm speaking to you right now, yeah, that you exist, that if you die, that there's going to be heaven and hell, that they exist, yeah. That there is such a number. If I know you don't believe it,
I'm not
but just put yourself in my position for a second. If you actually believe that there will be an everlasting gardens and this and that, and you believe in all that stuff. Right. You believe in the honey and the perfect. You believe in all of it. Virgins, all of these things, yeah. All of the things you like, and I like, and every man likes, except for the homosexuals. Homosexuals might not like virgin women, right?
No, probably not.
But what I'm saying is, if you actually believed that all of these things, my question is, would this act as an incentive for you or not?
If I actually believed it, I would be like, well, actually, it's difficult to say because I'm not very like goal oriented. But obviously, you're saying like this is the greatest reward you could ever get. So would you walk towards the greatest reward? Yeah, probably. But whatever.
Yeah.
But this is
how motivated. But do you know how brave that would make you? Like, I'm telling you, this is the real. Forget about red pill and blue pill. I'm saying it's the magic pill right now because, not genuinely. I'll be honest with you, Like right now, if you knew that if you were walking the street, you saw someone get attacked and knife and this and that, if I was an atheist, if I was a secularist, I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest. If I was walking around here right now, yeah, and I saw somebody getting stabbed or something, or getting beaten up, and I think to myself, if I get there, I could get beaten up as well. If I see a woman getting raped, stranger rape, which is highest here, according to the WHO report, highest in the Western world.
Where, in UK, in London?
No, in the Western world, in general.
Where?
In the Western world, that's what they said.
It's highest happening in
Yeah, stranger rape, yeah, according. What I'm saying is, imagine if I am walking and I'm seeing that, yeah? If I'm an atheist, egoist, because that's what we fundamentally are, psychologically, I would think to myself, why am I going to put myself in danger for this other woman? I don't know her. I am going to think that. But as a Muslim, what I'm thinking to myself is this. I'm thinking, wait a minute, if I go and save this woman, no, I'm being serious.
That's not the way your mind
No, wallahi, it does work like that.
It leads you into
No, it does.
issues as
No,
well.
I know, but what I'm saying is, this is how a person should like think, yeah?
This is how you like.
Yeah, no, I think, okay, but if I get involved in this thing, yeah, I try and stop this, and I get stabbed and killed. But then the Prophet ﷺ, he said that "Man qutila duna nafsihi fahuwa shahid." Whoever was killed trying to defend his life is a martyr.
You're resurrected, don't you?
Yeah, all
Come to life in
that.
that
No, but if
magical
you
place.
actually believe in that, yeah, imagine that now. Imagine I actually believe in that. Right? So if I believe in it,
don't they talk about the noble lie? Don't they? He talks about that. Isn't it just like that?
no, it's not, because we are talking about something which we believe is not a lie, right? So that's the difference.
Yeah, but the noble lie is just tell a lie to someone, it makes them do good stuff.
Yeah, but we'd have to establish whether it's a lie or not, and that's a different discussion. I'm just talking about a psychological thing. We don't want to go into different discussions here. I'm saying that on a psychological front, that would make me more brave, because I feel like, okay, I'll put my life on the line. I'll do it, no problem.
If you give someone like a tremendous thing like that, doesn't it just also cause fanaticism?
It can do. No, it can. No, it can do. That's why.
Single-mindedly.
Of course, there's fanatics. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Not the best. Maybe,
No.
Maybe the best is like a cold dispossessed. We'll weigh it all up and see. Maybe we can work out what's good and bad. You know?
Right. I understand that there's a problem with fanaticism. Yeah, I'm not denying that, and they use the same bravery as the ones that are doing noble things will do, right? But
we're just weighing up.
No. Yeah, agreed. But when we're saying that if people truly embodied the Islamic spirit, yeah, if they truly embodied, which is not, I would argue, is not the fanatic interpretation. That's my interpretation. I think that's a false interpretation. If they truly embodied the Islamic spirit, and ask yourself a question. What we're seeing here in terms of diffusion of responsibility, yeah? We are seeing something in psychology referred to as diffusion of responsibility. Someone gets beaten up, everyone's just pulling out their phone and checking that. If you go to, no, honestly, go to any African country of your choosing. Any of your choosing, yeah? Go to any country which is so-called low LEDC, yeah? That's unthinkable thing. Like, people are fighting in the street and you just like, no. They get involved and try and stop it and stuff, but people don't do that. That's why you have 50,000 people, according to the what do you call it? Met Police. Yeah? Not Met Police, the official government statistics. 50,000 people a year being stabbed in the UK. 50,000. Yeah. 50,000. Do you know why people are getting stabbed like that? Because the police are cowards. They do tactical retreat. They're scared to engage with the knife fighters. And also the public are cowardly. If they were living in a country where actually bring out a knife and the whole community will come out against you and deal with you because there's a communitarian spirit, we wouldn't find there are levels of knife crime in the UK being that level. Compare, once again, this might be a big claim, but I'm making it, yeah? Compare the levels of knife crime in the UK with any Middle Eastern country of your choosing, including Syria. Including Syria. I promise you, there is more knife crime in London than there is in Syria. I promise you. The war zones, even in the war zones, there's more than that. I promise you there is.
Even during ISIS?
No, not during the actual, whatever, but because there's gun crime there anyway. Yeah, no. But no, I promise you, go to anywhere you like, the knife crime we're finding in the UK it beats almost any country in the world. It's up there. Why are people? Because they don't have regard for human life. People are cowardly to get involved. The police are cowards. The community is a coward because they have this egoistic individualism. That's the reason why people are cowardly like that. You go to Nigeria, there's knife crime there, but it's not on the level. Ghana, it's not on the level. Sorry to say, go to any African country of your choosing, it is not on the level of the UK. And there's a reason for that.
So you're saying because these Middle Eastern countries have this religious meta story, It doesn't make them egotistic, or it makes them more community.
No, I'm saying, yeah.
I think the thing is, knife crime isn't the only way.
So,
Like,
sorry, he wanted to say something.
I think in other countries there are other ways to kill people besides stabbing.
Yeah.
So like, I guess you have shootings.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying to you, it's not on the level. I'm telling you, even that, it's not on the level. Like, for example, go to anywhere in Latin America, compare it with anywhere in the Middle East. Okay, let me ask you a question. What is more likely to be a dangerous place for you to go?
Me?
Anywhere in the Middle East. Let's exclude the war zones. Let's exclude them. Yemen and Syria, let's exclude them, and occupy Palestine. Let's exclude those 3 places, yeah? And Libya, which is like 4 of... But war zones are war zones, isn't it? Okay, anywhere in the Middle East you like. Where I'm from, Egypt, yeah? Compare Egypt with Mexico. Which is more safe place to go? If you walk in the street and anywhere in Mexico City, what is more safe for you to walk in the street there or in Egypt, in Cairo?
It's a good question.
Well, they're both 2 different countries. I mean, Egypt has like stricter laws, whilst Mexico's kind of dangerous for a different reason.
I understand, but I promise you would not be saying that if you went to both countries, because it's a good comparison. Mexico City versus Cairo.
That's a good question.
All right, Mexico City got 20 million people, yeah? Cairo's got 20 million people, same number, yeah? In fact, in the ranking, it's like 5 and 6. Like the 6th most populated city in the world is Cairo. That's double the population of London, by the way. Cairo's got double the population of London, yeah?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just giving you an understanding.
Yeah.
Now, if you go Cairo, with all of its problems, there are lots of problems. I'm not saying nothing. But what I'm saying is compare Cairo with Mexico City. In terms of knife violence and gun violence, there is no comparison whatsoever. I promise you, there's no comparison.
I mean,
compare Cairo with London, there's no comparison.
I mean,
Even though I'm telling you, by head of people getting stabbed or shot or killed.
You're saying safety.
Thing is,
anything that can cause harm.
Why is it not happening like that?
No, I don't know.
Do you get it?
It's a good question. I'd have to look at it.
The reason you got to look at individualism as an ideology. You look at, so the idea that you have family, you have community, that does actually have a part to play here. And I feel like
You're saying they don't have family and community in Mexico?
No. In Mexico, it's more of an individualist. It's a liberal culture now. It's a liberal culture.
Mexico's more dangerous because of drug trafficking.
Yeah, why? Yeah, exactly. Drug
Has
trafficking.
nothing to do with religion.
It does, because drugs are not allowed in the religion of Islam.
Well, they're not in Christianity either.
I understand, but what we're saying is that they're not acting on a Christian impetus. They are acting. First of all, Christianity doesn't have any strict rules against drugs like Islam does. Yeah. Secondly, in Latin America, they've absorbed Western liberalism. So what I'm saying is that the individualistic liberal flair. Look at Chicago. Look at Chicago. Like Chicago.
But what if you do the opposite thing? Where is the safest place in the world, and is it a liberal democracy?
Where is it? Tell me, where's the safest place?
I'm saying, if you look at the whole world.
All right. How about this? How about a place like Norway, for example? That's clearly an atheistic country.
I don't know what there's. I think it's the crime stats are quite high there as well. You'll be surprised.
Norway.
Yeah. First of all, Norway is 6 million or 7 million people. Yeah. So they've got a sparse population. The population of Norway is spread out.
What about somewhere like Japan?
What about Japan?
Maybe walking along the streets of Japan is the safest.
No, but okay. In terms of safety, I feel like they do have a collectivist spirit. Yeah, in Japan. However, I remember watching a documentary some years ago called Megacities. It was put by Andrew Ma. Yeah, he actually went to Tokyo. Do you remember this? Yeah, he went to Tokyo, and then he went to Dhaka. He went to many different megacities. He went to Cairo as well, in fact, yeah? The cities that are like of a certain population. When he went to Tokyo, it's number one in terms of, it's 37 million people, yeah? 37.5 million according to the last stats. Now, if we're saying that Tokyo, when he went there, and he saw how people were living, where now you have a different kind of issue, it's loneliness. People are renting friends.
But you're changing the topic, aren't you?
No, I got you.
We're evaluating it on a certain scale.
But people are
No. It's in terms of Japan. My argument would be that the culture is not fully liberal. That they're incentivized by different kinds of culture there, because they have. We talk about liberal countries, yeah. The culture in Japan is not fully liberal. Then I would say, actually, look at the crime stats in Japan. Look at them. I haven't looked at them. Let's look at them. And then number two, they have different kinds of facilities as well. Because if you talk about 37.5 million people in one city, and then most people live in skyscrapers and individual flats, and they don't have the same potential to create ghettos and stuff like that. So there are lots of considerations that one can make. But once again, I'll be honest with you, I haven't looked at the crime stats in Japan, and nor have I gone to that culture or that people. But I do think they have a communitarian spirit there, which is why they have things like, have you lived in Japan as well? So maybe you can tell us. What do you think? What's the crime like there?
It's very low.
Is it low?
Petty crime is very
Why do you think the reason is?
Organized crime is very high.
Is it?
Organized crime. Petty crime, and you can leave like your...
No, what about stabbings and killings and stuff?
No.
Is it low?
I've left my MacBook like in a cafe for hours and come back.
And why do you think that is then? What's your reasoning behind it?
Well, I think what you mentioned earlier is quite interesting because there is a collectivist culture. So if one person does one thing against the stream of the sort of community consciousness, they get extremely ostracized.
Yeah, so do you think that, okay, so he's confirmed what I was already thinking, and that's why they have a strong culture of suicide and stuff like that, if you've shamed the family. I remember reading a story of a man who left his family because he was in a house, and he left in Japan, in Tokyo. He left his house because he could no longer provide for them. He thought he was useless, so he said, I'm leaving.
That happens.
Yeah, so the point is that there's a strong sense of honor, collective community honor there in Japan. I'm not saying Islam is the only solution, by the way. What my thesis is as follows, is that when you have a strong individualism, okay, and you compare it to more collectivistic cultures, then the individualistic cultures are more likely to be high in crime than the collectivistic ones. That's my idea. Because if you go to a Christian community in Africa, that's why I said any country in Africa. If you go to a country which is majority Christian in Africa, but they are all, have a strong community or tribal allegiance, then it will be the tribal fathers that will come in and so on. Or chief masters, or whatever they call it.
Do you believe that Islam is something that is applicable to any country and any culture at any time? In other words, is it something that's eternal?
Yeah.
And your justification for that?
Yeah, I believe in that. I mean, that's what the religion of Islam claims to be. But then that doesn't mean that it's rigid. It doesn't mean that it doesn't take into consideration the socio-economic or political factors. Because there is an inbuilt flexibility in the religion of Islam, such that you can have a culture of, for example, if Japan became a Muslim country, like maybe Malaysia is a good example because it's the closest to it. Malaysia wasn't a Muslim country, Indonesia wasn't a Muslim country, then became. But if you compare Malaysia and Indonesia to Egypt, once again, you're going to find many things in the former that you didn't find in the latter, because they have a different kind of temperament, a collective temperament, they have a different culture, and so on. So I'm not saying that Islam is going to come in and engulf everything. It comes in, yes, and it's...
Just pick what fits.
No.
Change about a little bit and just
it comes in and gives principles of how to live one's life. Overriding principles. God is the Most High. These are the laws. This is how you should be with your family. This is how you should be with your community. Okay, but then you as a culture, as a people, bring in your own flavor of that. So in Malaysia, it's not going to be the same as Nigeria.
And your justification for that? Do you believe that? Do you believe like human beings are also in that sense, something that is you can apply to them, like the book of the Quran.
Say again?
The book of the Quran would be in your case.
Yeah.
That you can apply that to human nature, because also human nature is not something that is changing. It's something that you can explain from within, like the context of religion.
So what did you say that again? Sorry.
So I'm saying, you believe that human nature is not something that changes over time either. It's something that is fixed.
Human nature is another topic. So let me answer the question. I feel like Islam has 2 or 3 things that are important and have a cross section with the psychological literature. Yeah. First of all, the ideal fitrah, which is that everyone is born with the predisposition to believe in God. All right. But there's another thing as well, which is that the Quran states that وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا, and by the self and he who created it. So he inspired it by giving it propensity to do good and propensity to transgress. So the human being has propensity to do good or bad. Okay? Both of that is an integral part of the human project. God has put that in both of us. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا, the Quran continues, the one who has purified himself has succeeded. وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا, and the one who corrupts himself is a failure. So you have the potential as a human being to be either or. Okay? So why they say there's a cross-section of like the psychological literature is that in psychoanalytic theories, you'll find that, you know, the psyche and the dark side of the psyche and all these kind of things is there. You know, the unconscious mind, we believe in all of that. In fact, where Freud wrote a book on dreams and experimented with like the idea of the unconscious, where dreams come from, we also believe that dreams can be of the unconscious mind. That was something that was said 1,400 years ago. Al-aql al-batin or takhabbat al-aql, so it's the same thing was there. So when you find that the unconscious mind is composed of these different things, the potential to do good, the potential to do bad, some that can surface into the conscious reality and sometimes it's not. But yeah, that's where there's a cross-section, I would say, between the psychological literature and the Islamic understanding of, you know, for example, human psychology.
Because, you know, often it's not just against Islam, but against any sort of religion, or any, let's say, dogmatic religion, let's say in that sense. The common argument is that it can't really be applied to human beings because human beings are essentially an ongoing phenomenon, right? They're like a future-orientated and, you know, they change all the time. And you talked about the fitrah, but, you know, the opposite side would be the sort of like existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre and his ilk, who would say, actually, we're born without a blueprint, right? We are who we make ourselves to be, how we live our lives out.
Well, I mean, I don't know if Sartre said that or not. I haven't read that.
I think he did, yeah.
But I can remember. Descartes said the exact opposite. He said we're all born with the autograph of God. And so the idea that you're born like, because he got that from, you know, when he went through the meditations and he went through all this is cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. He said that's the highest level. It's the thing that. But he said that is we are born with the autograph of God. I think, therefore, God is as well. You know, and so the idea that we're born with that, I think, is a fixed part of the human psyche. That is a fixed thing. But the other things are there as well, and it's for the human being to choose, basically. And we believe he's a voluntary agent. Human being is a volitional agent.
Oh, you do believe that?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't believe it that the human being's action is determined?
We believe in compatibilism.
Okay. Okay. I was under the impression that. Because it's a debate, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah.
Compatibilism, determinism.
Now we believe in compatibilism.
Actually, do you mind me asking you about that?
Yeah, of course.
Because I'm struggling with this concept that, you know, God is sovereign, right? And so He knows what's going to happen in the future, right? So He has complete sovereignty over humankind, but at the same time He's giving them free will. So it seems like from the outset that there's a contradiction here, because how can you really have free will if God has sort of written out exactly what you're going to do? And I've been studying this Catholic monk called Spanish monk in the Middle Ages, and something Molinism, yeah. And
William Lane Craig is doing something on that answer.
Yeah, he had an interesting idea that he said God has
the wood knowledge, middle knowledge, yeah.
Middle knowledge.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what would be a good way of explaining the Islamic argument for that? Because it's a struggle to think, well, I'm free, but actually God has written it out.
I should start off by saying, quite frankly, that just as Christianity has divided on the issue, so has Islam. All right. If we're being completely honest, all right, I take the compatibilist position, but there were more positions that are closer to transdeterminism, and there were more positions that are closer to libertarian free will within the Islamic idea. Just like in secularism, there are all three views. Same thing with Islam, same thing with Christianity. You have Arminianism, you have Calvinism, and then you have Molinism, as you've mentioned, right, with Molina, and which William Lane Craig is defending the position of academically right now. The wood knowledge or the middle knowledge is actually, I was looking myself to find if there's any, are you going to go?
I'm head off.
All right, nice take care. You too, my friend. Yeah, see you later. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, man. Yeah, let's take a picture. Well, you've got it all there, so you know you can. Let's take a picture. Come.
Wait. Take it for you.
Hi. Do you want him to take it for you?
Yes, please.
Yeah. We'll talk about middle knowledge in a second. Yes.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Yeah. See you later, brother. So middle knowledge. Actually, there's a view which is commensurate with it in the Islamic paradigm, and it took me a long time to find it. But there's a guy called Najmuddin al-Tufi which had the pretty much same view. But he said that God, not the same view, he had a slightly different view, which is that God holds you to account based on what knowledge you would have done if you were free. If you're independent, okay, then God holds you to account based on that knowledge. Okay? Now, for me, it's a problematic view. Because on logical grounds and also on textual grounds. But I'm just letting you know that there is a kind of similar view in the Islamic view. The main opinion, the compatibilist opinion, is that there is an intersection, there is a symbiosis, there is some kind of compatibilism between godly determinism and human free will. Human being, from one perspective, is completely volitional, but from another perspective is totally dependent. He's dependent existentially, that without God, human being would not exist. Just like without the sun, this tree would not exist in front of us. But God has also allowed the human being to make decisions on his own behalf which don't interfere with his own sovereignty. How that takes place, the mechanisms of that, I don't know. And in fact, I believe they're unknowable. Because the Sunni position, the Sunni Islamic position is that anything relating to God's attributes is fundamentally, the howness, the mechanics of it are fundamentally unknowable. So if I would, yeah.
Is that the same for the Sufi and the Shia as well?
Sufis are, like, for example, when we say Sufis, it's not really a creedal school of thought.
Right.
It's referring to, like, you know, so most Sufis are Sunni, or at least they would claim to be, right? They would say I am Sunni. If you meet any Sufi, I have, they would usually say I am, I'm Sunni, I'm Deobandi, I'm whatever, yeah. The Shia position, Shiaism, like Tulsi and others like that, is similar to the Mu'tazili opinion, which comes closer to libertarianism, which is there's a person called Al-Qadi Abdul Jabbar, who's a Mu'tazili. He wrote a book, and in that book, he said that basically God creates what we do. God knows. He did it. Mu'tazili is a misconception. People think that the Mu'tazilis believe that God doesn't know, but he affirmed that God knows the future, but lets the human being act on his own spirit, on his own way. How that works out is problematic. That's why the other Sunnis have said no. Actually, it says it will threaten the sovereignty of God. That's the mainstream Ash'ari opinion, which is like represented by Al-Baqillani and Juwayni and these are Al-Ghazali. And it's also the opinion of Ibn Taymiyyah and the Hanbalis. For example, Ibn Taymiyyah said it and Ibn Qayyim said that. So there's a range of opinions here.
Fascinating stuff, yeah. Very fascinating. A lot to think about.
Thank you, my friend. But just to, there's a verse in the Quran which kind of, Quran says, فَلَمَّا زَاغُوا أَزَاغَ اللَّهُ قُلُوبَهُم. When they deviated, God deviated their hearts. So in other words, it's like this. God is all powerful, is sovereign. He has given human beings free will. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah, in his book Shifa al-Alil, he states that it's the example of a person. It's like a slave. Okay, a slave has a slave owner, and he says to him, "Look, here's money. Go and buy X, Y, Z. If you don't buy what I want, I'm going to punish you. And if you buy what I want, I'm going to reward you." So he gives him permission. Idhan. It's in Arabic, idhan. He gives him permission to go and buy whatever he wants. He says that who's really in charge here? God is in charge. God is in charge. In this analogy, it's like the slave and the slave owner. He says God is in charge, but he only gives human beings permission. And since that permission doesn't escape God's sovereignty, there's no contradiction here. So he's saying that, for example, that God gives human beings free will. But since that free will doesn't escape God's permission and or his sovereignty, therefore there's no contradiction between human free will and godly determinism.
Well, it limits your options.
How so?
Well, I mean, because if God knows, then he set some kind of parameters by virtue of knowing.
I mean, the thing is, I don't feel like knowledge itself is the problem here.
Okay.
I think if God knows that you are going to hell, and then you commit actions, his knowing doesn't mean that he's forced you to go to hell.
Making a choice.
It doesn't mean that he forced you to go to hell.
No, but his knowledge doesn't change, right? It's not like he knows.
Yeah, I agree.
His mind.
I understand,
So
but what
in
I'm saying is
sense,
that
in that sense, you're just carrying out some kind of like biological deterministic behavior.
No, but then if we're saying that there's human being has free will at the same time here, so God's knowledge doesn't inhibit the human free will. So the question would be, how does godly knowledge of the future inhibit human free will?
Well, it limits your options. It means you can only have, instead of having, I don't know, infinite options, you have like 100 options.
How?
Well, just by virtue of setting some kind of parameter around the. I mean, if you know London, for example, you know the parameters of London. You know that this is going to be outside, this is going to be inside. You have only a few routes that you can, explore. So, I mean, I guess.
No, but if the knowledge is based on the actions of the human being and the godly determinism working together.
Right.
So the knowledge is not despite human free will.
Right. Okay. So it's not a negation.
Yeah.
Regardless. Okay.
What becomes difficult is how could God will it? How could God create it? That's where the difficulty is. And so how can a human being be free at the same time God has willed everything? We're saying there's a mechanism at play which no one knows.
Is it?
The how question is unknowable. It's like asking the question, how does God see?
Exactly.
How does God hear? I don't know.
You don't see any problem with that from the Islamic perspective, that you cannot know these kind of things, because some common arguments that come from Christians towards Islam is that that there's some kind of, with all due respect, some kind of sort of anti-intellectualism when it comes to these things, whereby you just don't know, right? That's it. Don't even.
No.
explore
I
it.
mean, the Christian polemics on this issue, intra-Christian discussion, Calvin versus Arminius and Molina and so on, is very similar to the right. Even let me put it this way for you: atheists are debating it. So you have atheists who are compatibilists, like Daniel Dennett, and then you have Sam Harris, who's a determinist. So I mean, this discussion, by leaving Islam, let's say someone is so worried about the Qadr question, he leaves Islam. Oh, I don't know how it works. Okay, what are you going to become? Christian. He's going to see the same discussion there. You're going to become atheist. He's going to see the same discussion there. He's going to see. So it's a difficulty with the human project. It's something that human beings have found hard to understand. How is it on the secular paradigm that an uninterrupted causal chain of antecedent events causes the future, causes the present, but at the same time, human being has this volitional free will? That's the secular question. The religious question is, how is godly determinism and human free will commensurate with one another, or compatible with one another? And that it permeates to all three major world religions, Abrahamic religions, and all the other religions, in fact. So this question is difficult. In terms of the mechanisms of it, it's unknowable. And that's why if it wasn't unknowable, you wouldn't have, it's one of the biggest debates in philosophy, secular philosophy. It's one of the biggest debates in religion. If it wasn't that difficult in terms of mechanics, someone would have some kind of answer for it. But there are debates for that reason.
From the Islamic perspective, you're not saying we shouldn't explore. You're just saying even if we explore, it's just extremely hard.
I'm saying that there are some aspects of this discussion which are going to be fundamentally unknowable. The mechanistic question.
And therefore we should keep exploring, but we just won't know it.
I'm saying there are some things which can be known, and some other things which cannot be known.
Right.
So the things that we say as Muslims that cannot be known is the howness, the mechanistic question, the kayf. How is it? How is godly determinism and human free will come together? We postulate that they do. In fact, I think it's almost undeniable or unfalsifiable to say that right now when you're drinking, as you're talking, as you're acting, that you think you're in charge of your own actions. I think you do. I think I do. And if we didn't think that, as John Locke said, then the criminal justice system would be because in fact I can say, well, I go to court and say I was encumbered by an antecedent causal chain of uninterrupted events. No one has ever said that in a court. It's never been a defense, and for good reason. Because one of the presuppositions of justice, or justice being served in a law setting, legal setting, is that human beings are volitional, unless, of course, they are mental or insane or something like that. So that's what I'm saying. It's fundamentally impossible to deny or falsify the fact that I am saying, first person subjective, I am in charge of my actions and speech right now. At the same time, it's almost impossible to also postulate, unless you want to deny causality, that there is an antecedent causal and uninterrupted chain of events. So you are in. Even if we park the religious discourse to one side, you have this tension. And we're saying that that's why many compatibilists say there must be this point of compatibilism. The mechanisms of what I'm saying is unknowable.
One last question.
Yes, sir.
Is it the will of God in Islam that all human beings as much as possible, gain entry into heaven, go to heaven? Is that his will, or has he sort of, in a Calvinistic sense, more like predetermined people?
The will of God from an Islamic perspective is divided into two. What something called al-irada al-kawniyya and al-irada al-shar'iyya. So the al-irada al-kawniyya is the cosmological will, and irada al-shar'iyya is the legalistic will. So if we're saying, is it the will of God? Then from a legalistic or Shara'i perspective, yes it is. But from a cosmological perspective, no it is not. So then how do we differentiate? We're saying that God has created volitional creatures, independent, not independent in the strictest sense of existential independence, but to make their own decision making. They have free will, yeah? God has made free willed creatures. He has given them guidelines, told them this is what we want you to do, this is a test of life. And a favorable outcome is for you to believe in God, which will satisfy your own egoistic self-inclination. From that perspective, yes, God wills that human beings follow the guidelines. And that's why in the Quran it says, مَا يَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ بِعَذَابِكُمْ إِن شَكَرْتُمْ وَآمَنْتُمْ. What would Allah do? This is a verse in the Quran, Surah Nisa. What would Allah do with your punishment? In shakartum wa amantum, if you're grateful and you're believers. Like what gain is there from a godly perspective from punishing you? There's no gain there. So from that perspective, yes. But from the perspective of what will be the will that is carried out, well, the will that is carried out will be the one that is in congruence with justice. It's like to say a judge. I know analogies are all problematic, and this is a problematic analogy. I'm telling you that from the beginning. But he wants to judge in favor of the defendant or somebody, he wants to judge. However, the case makes it the case that he must be prosecuted. For example, if you're a judge and your son was in front of you in court, you would want him to be innocent.
Of course.
You would want him to be innocent. But in terms of you're willing him to be innocent, if you are a judge and you have to judge against him, then you will him to be guilty, if need be. Do you see the point? So the ambiguity, we have to disambiguate this word called will. Because the will can have more than one denotation or understanding. So if we're talking about from a cosmological perspective, then no. Then if we're not, then yes.
Fascinating stuff.
Thank you so much, brother. What was your name again, man? Mustafa. Oh, Mustafa. Good to meet you, man. Yeah.
I am from Islamic background, but
Are you from Turkey?
No, I'm from Iraq.
Oh, okay. Inshallah, I come back to the dream. Inshallah. Take care,
about
brother.
a lot of things.
Inshallah. Think about it, brother, yeah?
اسمح لي محمد السلام عليكم. I've got a question. If
Okay.
you've got enough energy and time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Barakallahu fik. So I was asked this question, I didn't know how to answer it. So just a clarification, inshallah. So it's Surah Mary 19, verse 7. I'll just say it from Sahih International. O Zachariah, indeed we give you good tidings of a boy whose name will be John, Yahya. We have not assigned to any before this name. Okay, so that's the verse. What I was asked was this. When it says never assigned before, is it full stop within like the total history of humans? Or was it just the family of Zachariah alayhi salam?
No, it's
because some say the Hebrew John, Yahya alayhi salam, is Yohanna, I think if I'm right. And they say, historically there were other Yohannas prior.
I'll look into tafsir just to make sure. But if Allah says, لَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُ مِنْ قَبْلُ سَمِيًّا, we have not made it, it could be the case, and I'll make sure of this before, I don't want to, that Allah didn't do tasmiyah of someone like that before. It might not mean the case that he was never called, there was never someone called that before. So Allah, he named certain people, certain things, himself. So Allah, he called him Yahya. So it might be the case that Allah, he never himself assigned the name.
Yani the first time he assigned a human that name.
He's the first time.
Direct.
But it might not be the case, and I have to double check tafsir if this is correct or not.
Sure.
It might not be the case that it was never called that in in the whole of history before. But I'll double check for you.
Because I've seen some brackets saying specific to Zakaria alayhi salam's lineage, yani within just the family.
That might be the case as well. I'll double check to see, inshallah.
Barakallahu fik.
Thank you, Akhi. I'm gonna go get some food. Who wants to take these things?
I'll give it to Sam and Dawa and the other guys.
You got it. Thanks, bro.
Salman.
Just gonna get a sandwich.
Inshallah. Good.
Put them in the bag or something.